I just wanted to say it's been an excellent, productive first official meeting. Of course, the Mayor and I have met on many occasions before. We continue to share some key priorities, and I would categorise those as housing affordability, transport infrastructure, and also a shared view around the need to improve water quality in Auckland and generally in our urban centres. So today was a good start for us to have a conversation about those priorities. I think our relationship is strong. That will be important as we work together to tackle again those shared issues.
And did you discuss Auckland Port and the fact that the port is looking to essentially embed itself, despite the fact that the coalition agreement shows that it needs to be investigated being moved, particularly to the north?
Yes, we did have a brief conversation about the port. Of course, we'll both have views on the port generally and those proposals. What I'm happy to say is that I have always opposed port expansion at its current site.
Did you talk about
what do you think of the...
Let me just make a general comment first to say that I'm really pleased that the objectives of the government are aligned with what Auckland Council believes are the critical priorities for Auckland. It's dealing with our massive problem of traffic congestion, 800 extra cars a week on the road. It's dealing with a housing shortage and affordability problem, and there'll be make a huge difference to have Kiwi build. And it's dealing with the problem that the Prime Minister referred to with water quality. This Saturday we will launch our Swim Safe program, and it will show that the degree of pollution that occurs every time there is rainfall in Auckland means that many of our beaches are not safe to swim in. We have a joint commitment to do something about Auckland's water quality. On the port, I welcome the fact that the government has committed to an Upper North Island port study. It doesn't make sense for Auckland to make a decision in isolation to what the region and the country actually needs. So this is a draft proposal from the boards that will go out for public discussion. They will be seeking resource consents, but what we've got now is a study that will demonstrate what will work best for Auckland, for the region, in the Upper North Island, and for the country as a whole. I think that study is going to be the study that really counts for what we do in the future.
In terms of housing affordability, there's been a bit of criticism over the last government over the special housing areas. Is there any work stream on that you can see happening, including perhaps using Kiwi Build to fill those gaps?
Well, special housing areas didn't deliver. They didn't deliver the houses that we need. Nobody is building affordable housing in Auckland at the moment, and that is creating a crisis for lower income families. The families that work in our hotels, that work in our service industries, that drive the buses and the cabs, can't afford to live in the city where their work is actually a vital.
So are we relying on Kiwi Build?
Kiwi Build will make a massive difference. I think, Prime Minister, you're talking about half of the 10,000 houses will come to Auckland. It means that our property development company, Panuku, and the government's Housing Corporation of New Zealand will need to work together for regeneration to get those houses.
And how about
How is the relationship going to work between the government and council to get those houses built, and are they going to be fast tracked?
Well, look, it's going to be a cooperative relation. That's the first thing. What council can do without government is incredibly limited. What we can do together, I think, is more than the sum of the different parts.
Absolutely, I'd agree, and that's what the establishment of the Housing Commission will help us to generate. We've always said that this would be a partnership, particularly between government, local government, and also the developers that will work alongside to deliver what is a really ambitious program. 100,000 houses over 10 years, and the Mayor is right, we will be focusing on half of those being built in Auckland. That is because that is where there is an enormous amount of need. Despite headlines today that house prices are beginning to slow, we still have an average house price in Auckland of over $1 million. We are not building enough homes in the affordable space in the range that people are demanding. We have a crisis and the market's simply not meeting that.
Just on light rail, do you know the split of the cost yet, or are you working towards an appropriate, an approximate split between government and
that's one thing we're happy to confirm today. We have had an ATAP process which has been helpful in bringing together the government, and local government, Auckland Council's priorities, we will be refreshing the ATAP process to make sure that we integrate this new government's priorities and to work through some of those longer term issues around the funding.
The east-west link?
Sorry?
Do you have a clear view about what to do with the east-west link?
We have a clear view that the current business plan was almost non-existent and not robust. We've said we will cancel the current plans as they exist, but we acknowledge that there are congestion issues that mean we need to re-look at how we respond to the problems that generated the original Westlink plan.
So,
Promise to Weepy.
Thank you. Very enthusiastic. I'm not used to having such a big crowd in Auckland. Yeah, look.
Do you miss it?
Of course I miss the gallery, a wonderful group of people. Look, we're adding 800 cars a week to the roads in Auckland. That is absolutely unsustainable. I've looked around at different models around the world. It is very clear that Auckland has to have a mass transit system. What we're doing in rail is really good. It'll make a big difference. But we need to have light rail, and I absolutely applaud the government for its commitment to light rail, initially across the isthmus, where as a very young child we used to have trams, and through to the airport, equally to the west, ultimately to the east and the north of Auckland. This will be a way that we can combat the growing congestion and gridlock of Auckland. So these things take time to build, but there are clear models for it. The work that I've done internationally just recently shows that light rail is not an outdated technology, it's what countries all over the world are doing and doing successfully. So it's a matter of timing, how quickly we can do this, and of course it's a matter of what Auckland can contribute. And with the regional fuel tax, we can contribute over a 10-year period something between $1.2 and $1.5 billion. If we did not have the regional fuel tax, we would have to put rates up by probably around 15%, which would be totally unsustainable. Or we would have to introduce a congestion tax, which I think in London at the moment is running at $21 a day. The regional fuel tax is on average probably $2.60 a week for the average motorist. That is absolutely sustainable.
So 1.2 of 5 billion, is it, the approximate cost of the light rail? Is that going to be the split, the cost?
Light rail, from memory, is to the airport will be something between, looking at Phil Twyford there, 2.5 to 2.8 billion. And to the west it will be probably maybe, very round figures, 300 million more than the alternative cost of a busway, which was previously completed.
Yes, so we're going to use the ATAP process to have these ongoing conversations. We've acknowledged the role that central government needs to play, but it comes on both sides. Of course, we've had a discussion today around what council can do to make sure it finds efficiencies so that it is in a position to fund to a greater degree what it's able to. We've talked also about the mechanisms we can offer. We've always acknowledged that Auckland should have some skin in the game, and that Aucklanders know we have problems we need to resolve. The regional fuel tax allows us to do that, and that's a mechanism we've been happy to offer to council to enable them to deliver these projects.
Will you be allowing Auckland Council to have Māori wards?
Oh, that wasn't a conversation that we've had.
But will you be?
It's not a
Because
conversation.
my understanding is the council will need government approval.
I'm not going to preempt a request that hasn't been made to us officially from council. We haven't had that conversation.
PM, just on a slightly different issue, PM, can I just ask you about what you make of the situation that's happening in the Manus Island detention centre?
Oh, I might finish with our Auckland questions so I don't continue to hold up Mayor Goff.
Just on Auckland Council's contribution, could it charge targeted rates on value uplift capture around these new routes to raise funds to help pay for the gap?
That's a concept that I think really needs to be explored. Sometimes when the ratepayer and the taxpayer puts in new infrastructure, it creates a massive uplift in the value of properties. And I think in principle it's fair that if you're getting a massive uplift in the value of your property, that you make a contribution to the infrastructure that lets that happen. I've talked about that in London. It is quite a complex area, but it's an area that I think both government and council are committed to exploring. I don't think it's something that we can bring in immediately. If you're going to do it, you would need to do it right so that it was equitable, and that it was done well, but it's a concept that certainly should be followed through on by council.
How about-
Is that something that the government could help with by changing legislation?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done on it, but it's work that needs to be done, and I think there's general agreement probably across the political spectrum that if you get a windfall profit, then you should be contributing some of that towards the cost of the infrastructure that enabled that to happen.
Any idea of how much of the gap could be filled with that?
It's too early to say at this stage.
Guys, we do have to go.
I've got a plane, unfortunately.